Today, we're going to look at what happened in Pennsylvania in 2017. Alina Sheykhet, a 20-year-old student at the University of Pittsburgh, stopped responding to calls and texts on October 8, 2017. She was supposed to meet her parents that morning, but neither of them could get in touch with her. When they went to her home, what they discovered changed their lives forever. Alina was born in Ivanovo, Russia, and her family relocated to the United States when she was just 3. She had a natural talent for singing, dancing, and acting, captivating many with her passion and grace on stage. Alina began her journey in the performing arts early, starting at the European School of Rhythmic Gymnastics at age 4. By 5, she was already performing solo in competitions outside her state. In elementary school, Alina attended Tammy Lee's School of Dance, where she starred in acrobatic dance performances. In a short time, she picked up various dance styles and skills that typically take years for other kids to learn. Due to her outstanding talent, she had the opportunity to dance with older and more experienced performers. In 5th grade, Alina started dancing at Karen Prunzik's Broadway dance studio, where she learned various dance styles like hip-hop, tap, and ballet. Embracing her Russian roots, she became the prima ballerina of the studio. Over the years, she competed in events like Onstage New York and Access Broadway, earning several awards for her impressive performances. Alina also showcased her talent at local events in Pittsburgh, such as Light Up Night, Macy's Christmas parades, and other gatherings in Robinson Township, Kennywood, and Idlewild Park. Moreover, the confidence Alina gained from dancing helped her realize her singing talent. She moved audiences to tears with her stunning performances of popular songs, both in front of crowds and at home with her family. At 14, Alina suffered a serious knee injury in ballet class and had to have major surgery. After months of physical therapy, she learned that she couldn't dance competitively or for fun anymore, which was devastating. However, she was determined to get back on stage. While attending Montour High School, Alina joined the musical theater program, allowing her to safely express her love for dance. She returned to the stage as a talented actress, dancer, singer, and comedian, captivating the audience with her performances. Alina starred in several musicals and plays, earning tears, smiles, and applause from those watching. Alina was a member of the Montour Chorus and performed at various events throughout the city, spreading joy to everyone there. Despite her injury stopping her from dancing and performing, her treatment journey motivated her to work in the medical field. She wanted to assist others who faced injuries that hindered their dreams. Ultimately, Alina chose to become a physical therapist. Alina had a very close relationship with her parents. In a 2015 Facebook post to her father, she wrote, "Happy Father's Day to the greatest dad out there. Thank you for always being there for me and having my back, no matter what. I couldn't get through one day without you. I love you so much, Dad." In another post that same year to her mother, she wrote, "Happy birthday to my gorgeous mother. I can't wait for another year of countless laughs and more memories. You are my best friend, and I love you with all my heart." Alina graduated from Montour High School in 2015 and spent the first 2 years of her college career at the University of Pittsburgh at Greensburg. She lived in the outdoor adventure and community service living community. During her time at Pitt Greensburg, in fact, she was the vice president of OACS during the spring 2017 semester. She loved participating in an organization that benefited animals and children. Again, Alina continued to shine her light, touching the lives of people and animals with her love and attention. Alina then transferred to the University of Pittsburgh's Oakland campus. She lived with her friends in an apartment and was prepared to dedicate herself to becoming a doctor of physical therapy. However, on October 8, 2017, Alina was senselessly and tragically killed at the young age of 20. Alina lived in this house with other students at the University of Pittsburgh. Her roommate, Zach Brander, vividly remembered the night he last saw Alina alive. After returning home from a late shift, Zach and Alina took a Snapchat together around midnight, playfully mocking other students who were posting night-out selfies. In an interview with reporters, Zach shared, "We all said goodnight and said, 'I love you,' like we did every night, and she went up to bed." A couple of minutes later, Alina texted me the picture we had just taken. That was the last I heard from her. The next morning, she was gone. The following morning, just over 8 hours later, Alina's parents, Ellie and Yen, arrived to pick her up for a walk in the park as part of a breast cancer charity event. Zach recounted the events of that fateful morning in the interview. He said, "Her mom came to pick us up at 8:45 a.m. Her mom rings the doorbell and says, 'Is Alina not awake? She isn't answering my calls, let's go wake her up.' I thought she slept through her alarm." Her dad was still in the car with their dog at this point. "We went up, and her mom started knocking on the door with no answer. This went on for 5 minutes, and it started getting really loud. She started shaking the door. You could tell she was starting to get a bit scared, like this wasn't normal. The dog was barking uncontrollably. That's when Ellie called for her husband, Yen, who came inside and broke down the door. Then they saw what was inside. Zach, halfway up the stairs, heard the sound of her parents screaming. They were shouting, 'Alina's dead, Alina's dead,' in Russian, with a horror that Zach could barely comprehend. They said her face looked mutilated. Zach ran up and briefly looked inside the room but couldn't bear it for more than a few seconds. He recalled the moment, "I went into the room, and it was horrifying. There are no words to describe what I saw. She was just laying there with her arms spread out. The whole side of her face was unrecognizable. You could barely recognize it was a face, it was so bashed in. She was lying in a pool of her own blood." He later called emergency services, clearly distraught, repeating that he couldn't look at her. As the ambulance siren filled the air, it was a grim reminder that someone's life had just ended. When paramedics arrived, Alina's mother met them at the door, trembling and in tears, guiding them to where her daughter lay. Unfortunately, the doctors had no choice but to declare Alina dead. The house was quickly cordoned off by the police. In a statement, Police Chief Scott Schubert said, "We do not believe at this time that this was a random act of violence. There is no continued threat to Oakland residents and the university communities." However, releasing additional details at this time could be detrimental to the investigation. As with each homicide investigation, our primary interest is collecting sufficient evidence that can be successfully used in a court of law. The investigation is ongoing. The medical examiner ruled Alina's cause of death as a homicide, stating that she had died from sharp blunt trauma to the head. Police already had a suspect in mind, Alina's ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Matthew Darby. The two had met while Alina was studying at the University of Pittsburgh at Greensburg, where Darby had played basketball during the 2015-2016 season. After their breakup, Alina had filed a police report on September 20, accusing Darby of breaking into her home by climbing the gutter and entering through a second-floor window. In her report, she described incidents of grabbing, pushing, emotional abuse, jealousy, and controlling behavior. Alina Sheykhet recalled accompanying his daughter to court with Ellie to obtain a protection from abuse, PFA, order. He mentioned that in the weeks leading up to her death, Alina had tried to distance herself from Darby, cutting off all contact, including phone numbers and social media. Darby was arrested for trespassing, but despite his history of abuse, he was released on $10,000 bail on September 26. Zach, Alina's roommate, remembered the turmoil in their relationship, expressing concern about Darby's abusive behavior. He said, "Halfway through sophomore year was when I started finding out that he was abusive. In the time I knew them, around 3 years, there was a lot of fighting. I'm not just saying this because she was my best friend, but Alina was extremely loyal to him. She never cheated on him, unlike him." Zach recounted a specific incident last month when Darby stood outside their room, yelling at Alina for over 20 minutes, accusing her of cheating with a boy from North Carolina. Zach explained that Darby's irrational outbursts had happened on many occasions for no apparent reason. Zach Brander recalled that Darby's behavior toward Alina was erratic and controlling. "We would go out for pizza and everything would be fine, and then he would just turn on her. He would go crazy for the littlest thing," Zach said. Darby's controlling tendencies extended to her social media as well. Zach explained that Darby had access to Alina's social media passwords and would unlike any picture she liked if it involved a guy. He never let her wear anything that looked too sexy. He was extremely controlling. Darby's obsession didn't end with their breakup. After they parted ways, Darby continued to harass Alina, calling her upwards of 20 times if she didn't answer, forcing her to block his number. The situation escalated after their breakup when, on September 20th, Darby broke into Alina's home. According to Zach, it was around 12:30 a.m. when he heard glass breaking outside. Assuming it was from a nearby party, Zach didn't think much of it until he heard someone falling and then Alina's terrified scream. Darby had entered her room. Though they managed to get him out and the police arrested him, the event left Alina shaken and scared. Following the incident, call records revealed that Alina had received 5 missed calls from Darby's phone between 4:15 a.m. and 4:55 a.m. on the morning of her death. Investigators traced Darby's movements through surveillance footage, showing him disposing of items, including 2 knives and a hammer, in a sewer near Alina's residence. The hammer had hair and skin on its claw. With this evidence, police requested a warrant for Darby's arrest, charging him with homicide, burglary, and several other crimes. Days later, Darby was arrested in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, after a concerned citizen reported him tampering with a window. He was charged with loitering and providing false information to the police, and his bond was denied due to the outstanding warrant in Pennsylvania. Alina's friends and family filled the courtroom during Darby's trial, many wearing purple shirts with her photo and the words, "Our Russian Princess," written in Russian. They advocated for Alina's Law, a bill aimed at tracking domestic abusers deemed high risk. Evidence presented at the trial showed Darby had been seen on Duquesne University's campus on the night of October 7, acting suspiciously. Surveillance cameras captured him wandering the campus, asking for directions and entering the student union to charge his phone. A striped shirt with a Miller Beer logo that Darby wore that night was later found among his possessions when he was arrested. Prosecutors argued that Darby's presence on campus and his erratic behavior aligned with the timeline leading up to Alina's death, solidifying the case against him. The prosecution laid out a strong case against Darby, using surveillance footage, phone records, and forensic evidence to demonstrate his involvement in Alina's tragic death. The footage showed Darby wandering around Duquesne University's campus just hours before the murder. He seemed nervous and, according to a university police officer, smelled faintly of alcohol. Prosecutors argued that this erratic behavior, combined with Darby's history of abuse and the evidence found at the scene, painted a clear picture of his violent intent. On the night of October 7, Darby had asked a university security officer for directions to Broadier Hall, a student residence. Surveillance cameras captured him entering the building. Prosecutors emphasized that Darby had been desperate, likely realizing that Alina had completely cut him out of her life after their breakup. His obsession and jealousy had been building for weeks, leading to that fateful night. When officers searched the area near Alina's home after the murder, they found 2 knives and a hammer in a nearby sewer, all items Darby had discarded in an attempt to hide his involvement. Friends and family who knew Alina struggled to cope with the immense loss. Her friends from the University of Pittsburgh and other universities came together to support her family, many of them donning purple shirts and carrying signs that read, "Love shouldn't hurt," and "Justice for Alina." The emotional toll on Alina's loved ones was evident, as her parents and friends shared stories of her kindness, dedication, and warmth, further highlighting the senselessness of her death. In the days following the arrest, Alina's family and friends pushed for Alina's Law to be passed in her honor. The proposed law sought to require electronic tracking of domestic abusers considered high risk, helping prevent situations like Alina's from happening again. Domestic violence awareness became central to her legacy, with many hoping that her tragic story could lead to meaningful changes in the law. As Darby's trial moved forward, the case continued to draw attention from local and national media, both for the brutality of the crime and the broader conversation it sparked about domestic violence and the justice system's role in protecting victims. Alina's parents, still reeling from their loss, attended every court proceeding, determined to see justice served. They, along with her friends and the community, hoped that by bringing attention to her story, they could prevent future tragedies from occurring. In the end, the evidence against Darby was overwhelming. From the physical evidence linking him to the crime scene to the digital trail he left behind, Darby's guilt seemed clear. His controlling and abusive behavior, documented by witnesses and Alina's own words, demonstrated a pattern of violence that culminated in her brutal murder. As the trial drew to a close, the community awaited the verdict, knowing that whatever the outcome, Alina's legacy would continue to influence conversations about domestic violence and the importance of stronger legal protections for victims. Darby's attorney, David Schreier, disputed much of the prosecution's case, arguing that there was no direct forensic evidence linking Darby to the murder and that the case was built on circumstantial evidence. He claimed that someone else could have used Darby's Uber account on the night of the crime. Despite these assertions, Darby fled Pittsburgh shortly after the murder, only to be arrested in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 3 days later. A key piece of evidence was the discovery of 2 knives in a sewer grate near Alina's home, items that police believed Darby had discarded after the murder. Schreier admitted that while the prosecution had a low threshold for evidence at this preliminary stage, he planned to gather more information to tell Darby's side of the story in the future. However, prosecutors presented compelling evidence of Darby's guilt, including his controlling behavior and his history of violence toward Alina, for which she had filed a protection from abuse (PFA) order against him. Prosecutors sought the death penalty, arguing that Darby had committed first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances, including the PFA order. However, Darby later agreed to plead guilty to first-degree murder, accepting a life sentence without the possibility of parole in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. His plea brought some closure to the case, but it did little to ease the pain for Alina's family. Alina Sheykhet, a promising college student with aspirations to become a physical therapist, was remembered as a vivacious and kind-hearted individual. Her father, Yen Sheykhet, spoke tearfully about his daughter, describing her as the best person in the world and expressing his devastation over her loss. Her mother, Ellie, described how difficult it was to comprehend the reality of her daughter's death, sharing that Alina had once cared for Darby despite fearing him. She had even resisted pursuing legal action against him, hoping instead to help him. Darby's guilty plea brought some measure of justice, but a year later, he filed a post-conviction petition, claiming that his original attorney had failed to properly advise him and assess the risks of his case. His new attorney, Joseph Huddock, argued that Darby was mischaracterized and that the evidence did not support a first-degree murder conviction. Huddock suggested that Darby was guilty of, at most, third-degree murder or voluntary manslaughter. Despite these efforts, Darby's attempts to overturn his life sentence have so far been unsuccessful. Alina's family continues to grieve her loss but remains proud of the legacy she left behind. She was remembered for her radiant personality, her compassion, and her infectious smile. Although her life was tragically cut short, Alina's impact on those around her lives on, as does the fight for domestic violence awareness and legal reform in her honor. Alina's death has left a lasting impact not only on her family but also on her friends and the broader community. Many of her loved ones have become advocates for domestic violence awareness, working to ensure that Alina's story serves as a reminder of the dangers of abusive relationships. In the wake of her tragic murder, her friends and family rallied behind legislative efforts, particularly Alina's law. This proposed bill aims to give judges the power to require electronic monitoring of domestic abusers who are deemed high risk, a measure that could help prevent future tragedies like Alina's. During the court proceedings, Alina's friends, many of whom were students at the University of Pittsburgh, showed their support for her family by wearing purple shirts featuring Alina's image and the slogan, "Love shouldn't hurt." This message highlights the pain that domestic abuse causes to victims and their families. Alina's family has been open about their profound loss. Her father, Alina Sheykhet, often described Alina as a source of joy, someone who brought happiness to everyone around her. Her mother, Ellie, expressed the emotional struggle of facing the reality that her daughter's promising future had been taken away violently. Alina's parents are heartbroken over her loss. They grieve not only for the daughter they had but also for all the moments she will miss, like graduating from college, getting married, having children, and following her dreams. Her father expressed his deep sorrow, describing the huge emptiness left by her absence. "He has taken Alina from us in a way we can't even imagine," Yen said, his voice heavy with sadness as he spoke about Darby. Although Darby is currently serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole, he continues to fight his legal battles. He claims that his original defense attorney let him down, resulting in a guilty plea that he believes was not suitable for his case. His new lawyer, Joseph Huddock, is trying to argue that Darby's actions were not as serious as first-degree murder, but so far, his appeals have not changed Darby's sentence. Meanwhile, the Sheykhet family is dedicated to remembering Alina and supporting victims of domestic violence. In court, Darby wore a red jumpsuit from Allegheny County Jail and answered the judge's questions but mostly stayed quiet. When asked why he was pleading guilty, he answered, "Because I am guilty." This confession gave Alina's family some closure, but it couldn't erase the pain he caused. Even after the court's decision, Darby's efforts to reduce his sentence through legal actions keep bringing up painful memories for Alina's family. Alina's loved ones find strength in their memories of her lively personality. They remember her kindness, zest for life, and the happiness she shared with others. The Sheykhet family is committed to preserving her legacy through personal tributes and raising awareness about domestic violence. While the legal case against Darby may go on, Alina's memory and the joy she spread will always inspire her family and friends.